this is A Wilson. That ain't you just like a TIN. If you like my video, please give it thumbs up and consider subscribing. Something I'm going to talk to you today about Normani. Earlier this month, Normani was on Jennifer Hudson's show, and she was promoting the movie Freaky Tales. I think it was around the fourth, maybe the fourth of April, something like that. I know it was like the first weekend, like the first weekend this month. But anyway, it started off with her going down. I call it J Hood Soul Train line, but they call it something else. And she was singing, and they had Wild Side mixed with motivation. And she was coming down there, and she was dancing, coming down the hallway, dancing, coming down. And then when she turned around and looked at the production staff and all the people that were there around, and she said, "Ooh, y'all did a real good job. Y'all did a real good job." And then J Hood came out and hugged, and he sat down in front. He said, "Hey, Normani." And he said, "Hey, how you doing?" He said, "Normani, how did this come about that you are an engaged woman now?" She said, "Yes." She said, "Short up a ring here, I had a finger up, short up a ring and stuff like that." And she said, "Yeah, I'm engaged." She said, "Well, what happened?" She said, "What happened? How did you find out about it?" She said, "Well, it's during spring break, and my boyfriend was saying we were gonna go down there and celebrate his cousin's birthday, and it was spring break, and his cousin had birthdays and stuff like that. And so he told me to act surprised, when we have the birthday thing. And so we got ready to go down there. I got down there and stuck. And I was saying, "Oh, I hope I don't get a surprise before the birthday come. I hope they don't get a surprise." She said, "Yeah." I was running around with my camera, trying to take pictures and stuff. And people looking at me all funny and all crazy kind of stuff. And then he said, my mom told me, she said, "Why don't you go over there and look at the card?" I said, "Huh? Look at the card. Go over there and look at the card. Sign the card." She went over there, and she said she was so shocked and surprised. And everybody said surprised. He said her boyfriend had a big old thing of flowers going around. And when she opened the card, that's when she started engaging me and everything. And she said yes and stuff like that. And so she said she was oblivious to everything. And she was oblivious to everything. And everybody else knew about it but her. And she was so surprised. And she was telling J Hood that he wanted to propose to her a year ago, but she was saying by her album coming out, he didn't want to overshadow her in her album. And she said, "Oh, that's good, that's good." And so she said, "Oh," she said, let's talk about your movie Freaky Tales. Are you gonna be doing more movies?" And she said, "Yeah, I would like to do more movies. I would like to do more movies." And she said, "Yeah, I had a good team, working with me. I wasn't really a good actress, but I had a good team working with me. People who helped me out and stuff like that." And she said, "Yeah, I would like to do more movies. And I had a great team. I had a great team." She said, "Oh, and by the way, man, you got a whole album out here and stuff. They're called Dopamine, and it's really good. And it got a lot of sexy songs on." She said, "What did your parents think about you singing this type of music?" She said, "Well, my dad, he really didn't care. He really didn't care too much. But my mom, she was kind of concerned. But then she got out right after a while." She said, "Yeah, what about your grandmother?" And they saw her grandmother backstage dancing. They said, "Oh, my grandmother's something else." She said, "Yeah, your grandmother is something else." My grandmother is lively and feisty to be 85 years old. I said, "She sure will." And then next thing you know, she said, "Do you have like a Dopamine deluxe album coming out?" She said, "We've been talking about it. We've been working on it and stuff." Like she said, but she said, "What about your fans?" She said, "Oh yeah, my fans been very supportive of me. My fans is the one where I still keep doing what I'm doing, even though I love what I'm doing and stuff like that." She said, "I hear you, fans. I hear you, fans. I got visuals coming. I got visuals coming." And she said, "Oh, you got visuals coming?" She said, "Yeah." And she said, "I'm gonna take you over here and we're gonna play a game." She said, "I'm gonna ask you some questions." She said, "If you don't want to answer the questions, you gotta dance with me." She said, "The first dance you gotta do is the is the what she said, is the stinky link or something like that." And so she said, "What's one thing that you did that you don't want your parents to find out you did?" She did slinky link dance. She said, "Oh, I did it real good, real good." And then so she said, she said, who would you like to be at your wedding, officiating your wedding? She said, that's an easy question. Sierra. She said, oh, Cece. She said, yeah, Cece. And she said, another question she didn't answer. She said, well, you gotta do disco dance me. And she said, okay. She said, but Jennifer, you gonna have to dance me too. Jennifer said, no, I can't dance like that. And then so she did another dance, and I think it was the first dance, and she did the slinky link in the other dance, and she was throwing out over her head, and J Ho said, "Ooh, I could never." She said, "You all right, Normani?" She said, "Yeah, my hand might be hurting a little bit, and stuff like that." And she said, good. She said, since I'm gonna dance, I'm gonna try to go ahead on. J Ho was trying to do disco dance with her and stuff. And they got to answer the questions. It was like a good little interview. And I really like when I really liked the interview with J Hood. Too bad she couldn't sing none of her songs out of Dopamine and stuff like that. And J Hood told her that she liked her. And she was glad she would come back. And she told Normani that she mentioned to Normani that they almost had similar experience. She said she was in a girl group, but then the girl group disbanded. So by the time she got to American Idol, she wanted to be a solo singer. And she said, Normani, you start off in X Factor as a solo singer, but you wound up in the group. She said, yeah. Yeah, we went to a special kind of boot camp. And while we did that boot camp, the judges said, all y'all stand by one another. And the next thing you know, they put us in a group. We was in a group. And I've been honest. And she said, I'm grateful and thankful that I was in the group. We had our stuff, but now I want to do my solo stuff. She said, yeah, you are a prime example of what an artist should be, humble, and people love her, and especially for young black girls growing up, want to be singing. The money got to cry and talk about her fans, and then J Hud gave us a tissue paper, and she said, "I'm just telling you that don't be overthinking yourself, don't, because you are that person, you are that girl." And I'm so glad that J Hud was encouraging money and stuff like that and stuff like that. That was a good interview that she did with J Hud. I really did like it and stuff like that. That's all I have for this video. This is A Wesley. That ain't even tells it like a T.I. is. I am out.